By winning 2 straight championships, Mika Hakkinen did something that Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, and Niki Lauda were never able to accomplish. In fact, Hakkinen is only the 7th man in 50 years to repeat as champion. Here's a look at some of the greatest drivers of all time and their historic seasons. The first back-to-back champion was Alberto Ascari, who won his first title in 1952, winning all 6 races that he entered. Ferrari was the best car that year, and Ascari just overwhelmed his teammates. But the next year, Ferrari's supremacy was challenged by Maserati and the 1951 champion, Juan Manuel Fangio, who was returning from an injury that had forced him to miss the previous season. It was a classic matchup, Ascari and Ferrari versus Fangio and Maserati. Ascari won the first 3 Grand Prix of the year, stretching his winning streak to 9, a record that still stands 46 years later. Ascari beat Fangio 5-1 in race wins, giving the Italian his 2nd straight championship. But tragically, Ascari was killed testing just 2 years later. His great rival, Juan Baggio, is the only man to have more than 2 straight championships. He won 4 in a row from 1954 through 57. In his early races in his native Argentina, Fangio developed a keen mechanical sense, which enabled him, once his European career began, to usually choose the best car. But even on those occasions when he did not have the best, his incredible driving skill and racecraft made up the difference. His 4 straight championships came with 3 different teams. Fangio retired on top, and generations of drivers have treated him with reverence. By contrast with Fangio, Jack Brabham's mechanical sense seemed to work against him. People thought that his championships came only because of his car, and that his driving skill was no match for his great rival Stirling Moss. In fact, Brabham was one of the sport's most technically astute drivers, as his later successes as a constructor attest. Much of the credit for the Cooper's superiority during the 59 and 60 seasons belongs to Brabham. His feedback and ideas enabled John Cooper to make the most of the then radical rear engine. Brabham played a large part in the actual design of the 1960 Cooper, which won 5 races. He was easy on equipment, and he had an awareness for just how far he could push the limits of the car. Brabham's back-to-back championships were the product of a driver whose practical engineering skills were way ahead of his time. It would be 25 years before another driver would win 2 straight championships, and that man was Alain Prost. In 1985, he cruised to the title, winning 5 races and defeating Michele Alboreto by 20 points. But the following year would be another matter. His McLaren was no match for the Williams Honda. But Williams had no team orders designating a number 1 driver, and Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet swapped wins, and neither was able to pull clear of Prost in the standings. Nevertheless, in the last race of the season, Mansell had the title in his grasp. And then his tire blew, and Prost went on to win the race, clinching the championship by 2 points. Prost was nicknamed the Professor by his rivals, and he was a great tactician in an era when fuel consumption and tire wear were often decisive factors. Prost would win 2 more championships and a record total of 51 wins, 10 more than his arch-rival Ayrton Senna. Like Ascari and Fangio, Prost and Senna defined the era in which they raced, and to spice things up, Prost and Senna hated each other. Senna clinched the 1990 championship when he intentionally took Prost off the road at Suzuka. The next year, Prost and Ferrari were not a factor, and Senna won the first 4 races and held off a late charge by Nigel Mansell in a Williams. It was the last of Senna's 3 world championships. He was killed 3 years later. Like Fangio and Jim Clark, Senna's achievements transcend the record book. He was held in awe by his rivals, who admired his speed and feared his aggression. The next back-to-back champion, Michael Schumacher, would emulate Senna's intensity, and like Senna, would be both admired and feared. But Schumacher's legacy, in addition to his raw speed, would be his ability to manipulate pit strategy to his advantage. He won the World Championship in 1994 and 95, both times at the expense of Damon Hill. The 1994 championship was settled when Schumacher and Hill crashed in the final race. Both drivers were out, and Schumacher won the title by 1 point. The next year, Schumacher easily repeated as champion. He won a record-tying 9 races that year, defeating Hill with not only outright speed, but also his ability to wage psychological warfare. Schumacher's place in the sport has yet to be determined, and where he once battled Damon Hill, today he battles Mika Hakkinen, only the 7th man in exactly 50 years of racing to win back-to-back championships. How about Jack Brabham? Head all tipped over like that. Great stuff, huh?